Indeed, yes. Recording in progress. Anyways, Dustin, or aka Walter ETC, previously Walter and Walter Mitty, and oh man, sorry, Walter Mitty and his makeshift orchestra. Thank you for. Sorry, man, I'm overthinking things. There we go. So, thank you for joining Uncontaminated Sound. So I guess, dude, where does your creative journey begin? I guess that's a logical starting point to this discussion. But.
Yeah, probably hard to trace if it's just the creative journey in general, you know? Because I remember like being really little and writing little stories about like animals and stuff.
Yeah.
When I was like, 5 or 6 or something, on like a yellow pad, and like keeping it in my room, like adding to the story when I had an idea when I was like super young. And eventually me and the same guys who are in the band now, Chris and Jake, at least that's some of the bandmates now, they were my childhood friends, and Jake and I lived on the same street, and we would like make up little songs about like girls we had crushes on, or like just stupid kid stuff, and we didn't really play instruments. We just kind of like clap a beat and then like sing. And Jake was like I was kind of a follower of Jake. He was like the really unself-conscious kid with the goofy songs, and I thought it was so cool, and I kind of make my own up, but just follow and sing Jake songs. And then eventually we got really into like Green Day and Blink-182 and punk rock, and we got guitars and basses. So the music journey starts there around like 5th grade.
Yeah.
But yeah, it goes back as long as I can remember. I just wanted to make stuff,
Yeah. But when was the point you're like, I'm going to pursue this as a profession? Were you classically trained in any instrument, in music at all? Or did you just kind of form the band, grow in high school, and just kick off from there? Or?
Totally. The latter.
Yeah.
Just self-taught. I remember like Jake had some guitar lessons as a kid, and his mom would like let me sit in on them a couple times. And so I had like a couple little guitar lessons, but mostly self-taught. And we had, bands from like 5th grade through high school. That was our pop punk band. And then I wasn't the singer of that. I like wrote a lot of the songs, but I didn't sing. And then by the end of high school, I was kind of just like, well, I want my own band. I want to, and I don't always want to sound like punk. Sometimes I want to do like a folk thing. And so that's when I started Walter Mitty at the end of high school. And it was kind of a solo project, but ironically just looped in the same Chris and Jake and then some new friends. And it was the same band with a different name. And never really took it seriously until in college, I met a friend named Milk, who's now in the band and, one of our best friends. And Milk and I were like new friends, and we went out to this state park in San Luis Obispo on the beach called Montana de Oro. And we it was our first time doing psychedelics, and we like had a great time and great conversation. And up until that point, the band was very much like for fun, but we always were like, what's our real job going to be one day?
Yeah.
And it was during that afternoon, just the two of us, where we kind of like had this euphoric moment where we're just like, fuck it all. We only have one life, so we're just going to do the band no matter what. And,
nice. Yeah.
And then from that moment out was kind of when we took it seriously, and we're like, let's make this our life.
Now, I'm curious, when you created the title of the band initially, did you conceive this like alternative kind of persona from yourself? Is Walter like extension of your like other self, I guess, or is it? Where did Walter come from? I guess. Yeah.
No, that's a really good question. The name originally came from, I just didn't want to put my own name on my music.
Yeah.
Fearing that friends would find it on my computer, or my family would find it or something. So I liked the name Walter for some reason.
Yeah.
And I typed it into Wikipedia and found this character in a book called Walter Mitty. And I just read that like the character daydreams a lot, and he uses his daydreams to escape his real life. And then I was like, oh, well, that kind of sounds like me and my songs. So then I just called myself Walter Mitty, not realizing that it would one day be a popular movie starring Ben Stiller,
Yeah.
And the pop culture reference wasn't as covert as I thought it was.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
So that was the original reason, but it kind of has proved to still be like, the Walter thing is maybe not directly Dustin, but it's pretty damn close, and it's provided kind of like a buffer between true reality and then kind of like the music reality, even though they're like very close and identical sometimes. Other times they're not really the same thing at all.
Yeah.
And so using the alias kind of gives me the freedom where it's like I'm writing Walter's life and thoughts, and it's not always mine, even though it seems pretty much mine.
Oh yeah, no, totally. I think like I write too, just actually just out of habit, and I need to. I have a typewriter, and I just every morning I'm just typing away. But just I find it sometimes if you're trying to tackle like say a tough topic or anything, it's easier to step away in a different persona or voice or perspective viewpoint than trying to write as yourself, where you could get tripped up with like say writing about a personal experience. But if you write about the same experience but as a different person or a different character, it's much easier as an artist, right, or a writer to kind of create that other world where you're writing about that exact experience, but just with a persona as that kind of buffer of, this is the work, but I'm not actually putting my true self out there, I guess,
Totally. Yeah, it's like a kind of like a protective layer or something.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. That's where I think all artists kind of need to do that as well, no matter what medium. Like I also, kind of paint too, and I do everything. Besides actually play music, I'm terrible at that. I attempted, violin and saxophone in fifth grade, dropped that real quick, but I so I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry. I just.
Well, and then also it provides like I think about like if I was to rep the band as my own name, if it was like Dustin Hayes and there was that on the album cover and the T-shirt, like the promoting that and standing by that is just be like so much more embarrassing. I feel like
Yeah.
So it feels so whatever self-aggrandizing or so conceited to just be like my name everywhere. But when it's an alias or something, you have that psychological defense where you're promoting the third party thing, and it's not directly you.
That's true. You can actually kind of be a brand. You brand that name comparatively to like I don't want. It's weird just using my own name as a brand. A brand. So yeah, it makes things easier. What's that?
No offense to other solo artists out there, you know what I mean?
No, of course, but I think I'm kind of similar too, where I kind of need like a different title comparatively to using my own name. It's weird, but I guess with my photographic work, I have to use my own name, and but if I was painting, I probably I need to create like just like like Banksy has like just like this other persona, mysterious, but artists. Oh, I find street artists do that more so than like more fine artists, but it's similar principle. But so I guess so during that time during college, right? When you guys figured out let's take this seriously, what were the hurdles you had to face? I assume like family and were or a bit pushing back, like are you nuts, or like what was that decision like regarding like the external circle in like family, friends, etc.
Well, family wise, my family's always been very supportive parents as far as like whatever you want to do, we'll back it, as long as it's not like illegal or something.
Yeah.
So they've always been really supportive. I think it was kind of like grin and bearing it, just like, oh, are you really gonna do this Walter thing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they were always supportive, and like, you know, they lent us their car to do our first tour when we were in high school, and then again later we toured in my parents' truck in college. So they're backed it. I don't know how much they believed in it at the beginning, you know, but they're supportive. But it was more of like we're like, okay, let's take this seriously, but then it's okay, how do we take this seriously?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we didn't really know how to be a band. We certainly still don't really know how to be a band, but we had like other friends who it just seemed to click for them. You know, like we had friends in a band called Modern Baseball, who we started a little bit before then, but we were basically at the same time. And things just seemed to click for them. You know, they knew how to be a band so well. They had a friend who managed them and did a super good job. And then they knew like we make our release, then we like market it, and then we like, this is how we tour. And eventually they get the agent and the label, and like everything clicks into place. And watching them was like, how do you guys know how to do this so intuitively? How is it working out? And then for us, we're just like, okay, so how do we be a band again? Like, we booked our own tours, and then we're like, okay, eventually someone's gonna book a tour for us, right? And then it's like, oh, it doesn't. Oh, what the? And then bandmates are always like moving away to college and doing different things, and then we could never really get it all on the cohesive page, you know, like some other bands. And we're still kind of learning, I guess. But in a way, that's kind of what's made us carve out our own unique little niche in the cultural music realm. So in some ways, it's kind of fostered a cool environment for us.
Yeah. Now, well, how did I guess then, like, how did you like grow your fan base? Was it just go, you know, the grind of going to venue after venue and building up a fan base? Or I'm always curious, like from, you know, that seedling stage, like how do you get that, you know, start building up that fan base, I guess, you know?
Right. I don't know.
Was it, well, well, I guess, yeah, that's, if we all knew, you know, it's like, that's the equation. Like,
right.
How do I get people to like my stuff? Well,
right. Well, certainly some of it I know came from our, like the old school, we just like hit the road and played a shit ton of shows for so many years, you know, and met a bunch of people in bands, and some people liked our music enough to follow along. So definitely that was just like the organic touring, playing to no one every night until people start to show up kind of thing. That was part of it. And then part of it was meeting those friends like Modern Baseball or this band called the Taxpayers, who we'd like meet them, and then they would have us open for them on some shows, and obviously that helps attract more people to your music. But besides that, like, I don't know. It's not like we never really got some big break in the traditional sense where, like, you know, there's one thing that sends you over the edge. It's been a lot of just gradual working at it for years, and then we just like slowly climb, and it kind of snowballs on itself a little bit.
Were there moments there, like you're like, did you want to just say like, I'm done pursuing like this, and like, because, you know, as I've been finding out in the last few years, actually I started kind of pursuing art later than most. Yeah, it's a rocky kind of start, but was there a point where it's like, oh, maybe I should do something else, I guess, or I'm sure, you know, that it might have come up, but was there like a specific moment where you're like, I'm gonna just toss that aside and continue my craft?
Yeah, I mean, there's in a small way, as I'm sure you can relate, that's like that is every single day.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
like that's just the constant existential crisis. It's just like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I trying to make this thing work that is clearly not what society wants out of me?
Yeah.
In bigger ways, there has been like a couple moments in my life where it was like very much, I should probably throw in the towel now. One of them was like at the end of the band Walter Mitty and his makeshift orchestra. That kind of like ended, even though it's the exact same band, but that like pure beginning era of the band when we were under that name ended around like 2015, beginning of 2015. We just had no momentum as far as internally. Externally, more and more people were hearing our music, but internally, like one member's going to grad school, one member's like not super healthy, one member's like going to get a real job and has no time for the band.
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of me like wanting so bad to be a legit band like other bands, you know, of our peers, but us just not able to do it. And that was for sure a moment like 2015 where I was just like, what the hell am I going to do? I guess I just throw in the towel and go like into fucking become a fireman or like go into real estate or sales or something. Like, what the hell do I do?
Yeah.
But that was when I just said, well, I'm just going to reform the band and call it Walter, etc. And then it can be like literally anything that I want it to be. And I just kind of like regained the grip on the reins a little bit. Got some new friends to play with, and then eventually the old friends came back. But that was like the first time where I was really at a crossroads of like, should I quit now or should I keep going? And I'm glad I kept going.
Yeah. No, I think any creative journey, there are those moments of like, what I've experienced too is like with most of my older my friends or contemporaries have stuck with like that traditional route of college, work, corporate career, and house kids and stuff like that. And now I'm not connecting with any of them because I've gone on this crazy journey, and it's like they don't get me, right? You know, so it's in it kind of, you know, and that stage it's like, oh, I'm very isolated, but I found my true identity. I'm an artist. Like, I can't do anything else. After doing other stuff, I don't belong in the corporate environment. I've tried that, you know, that didn't work out. It was a terrible environment for me, you know? So it's like, I'm an artist. So it's like, you have to accept that and then kind of push forward in this journey. And like you said, constantly push things out no matter what.
Right. And that's true. The accepting it as like, oh, I'm an artist thing is like, that's a huge hurdle in itself, at least for me. And it sounds like for you, you know, because for so long it's like, oh, this is, I don't know. It's kind of like trying to like keep one foot in, one foot out over like, oh, am I really an artist? You know, because that seems to have so much weight, even though I don't really think it has that much weight, but it feels like it does, you know? And then you're like, oh, well, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Now you're like, which lane am I in? Oh, I'm kind of in both. And then to finally just commit to the one lane of like, I'm going to do this and do the art thing, that's just a big hurdle in itself. Yeah, no,
it's like, that will give you direction on like how to proceed, you know? It's like, oh, I do have I have a degree in criminal justice, you know? Like,
cool.
And
I have a sociology degree.
Oh, cool. See, I was fascinated with that side of things, like criminology, sociology, psychology behind why do we do what we do, as you know, why do we commit like heinous crimes? Fascinated with that stuff, like the criminology side I was excellent with and you know, out of college I was looking into like forensics jobs or crime scene investigators. But I mean, then when I went through that process, it's like, oh, $12.50 an hour for being on call 24/7. You know, it seemed the darkest side of humanity. I'm like, maybe not, you know? Like,
right.
So, you know, it's been a weird journey for me. I don't want to like, you know, hijack the conversation just on me, but I like to do back and forth, you know? But it's just weird. I guess the universe will show your true path somehow if you go out, seek and try to find your true self, and eventually you find it if you're out there looking for yourself, right? By attempting different things like office work, or you know, even if you became a firefighter, you're like, oh, that wasn't me either, you know, like.
Right, you have to try. You have to go and find out. And then...
Exactly, because most people don't. They generally, well, you know, they may, you know, stay in that job and start growing in that career, and they just kind of maybe stay complacent. But I guess, yeah, I guess the universe holds special to artist's path, right? I guess it, if you are an artist, it's meant to be like, it's just you. You're like, that's it. It's a part of you. It's an intrinsic part of you. So it's like, you can't do anything else. It's not a hobby, you know, like, and that's what I get irked with too, when people say it's a hobby, you know, it's not a hobby, you know, but, yeah. Anyways, sorry to go on a rant on that. How, I guess, so you guys toured a lot, et cetera, but how has like the pandemic kind of, how did you have to adapt in the, you know, post-pandemic days, and during the days of like lockdown? How did you still continue to push out music or promote your stuff during like lockdown periods and stuff?
Yeah, well, kind of a cliche at this point, but much like a lot of other people, we took the time to record and write music. So, excuse me a sec.
Yeah.
Big burp. We all got together in a cabin in Big Bear, which is like mountains behind LA, kind of.
Yeah.
And we recorded a little more acoustic, like folk album of some songs that I'd been writing right before the pandemic, and then like kept writing as the pandemic was going on. And we all got together for like a week or so and made that album, and then obviously put it out and did a bunch of live stream kind of stuff too, much like other artists during the pandemic. So we found ways, as everyone kind of did, to stay active and stay alive and creative. And then as soon as last summer, right, that was last summer, when things started to quiet down before Delta variant kind of ramped up, we went and did like an all outdoor acoustic tour where we played those acoustic songs that we had just recorded, and obviously other songs, and did like outdoor park shows, and like we played like outdoor at a brewery and backyards and things like that were kind of COVID friendly shows. So that's what our band kind of looked like during that era. And then now, you know, who freaking knows what the future holds, but we have been like this month playing some more regular venue shows and stuff again. So in the time being, things have gone back to normal. But
have you kept it hyper local, like just in the, are you in LA or like San Diego, or
I'm an hour north of LA in Ventura.
Oh, okay. I think I have a friend in Ventura. I went to college with, and
really,
I think she's from Ventura. Yeah. Yeah, my cousin used to live out in San Diego, so I was always out in San Diego visiting. I love SoCal, but I love the beach too, you know. But now I find myself like in a valley, and I'm like, I need the water. Like I need the beach. Like, so I'm like, I'm kind of feeling a bit trapped here. I need like the coastline, man. Like I just love the beach, you know?
Yeah. It does. I don't know if it does it for everyone, but for me at least, the coastline and having like the ocean nearby, just like, I don't know, it does something psychologically, you know?
Yeah.
So all that open space kind of feels good on the brain.
Yeah.
For me at least.
Oh, same here. That it's like, well, they say like more extroverted people like the ocean and the beach more, comparatively to more introverts, where they like the mountains and you know, being more in the mountains. Like I was never a mountain guy. I was always a beach guy. I'm from Boston, you know, where, you know, and we have lovely beaches in Mass, and it's just like I love that vibe of just being in the. I love the water.
Well, it's not going anywhere, so you have time.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, man. I'm curious too. Like, actually, my partner started watching on HBO 10-Year-Old Tom, which is amazing. It's
awesome.
Which is super cool. And I'm like, oh, she's like, and you know, I'm like, who played the you know, the theme song? And right. She told me when she and she's a music publicist, so she's generally like helping bring in people to talk to. So she told me you guys, you know, your song "Auntie Earth" was the theme song for 10-Year-Old Tom.
Right.
What's the story behind that? How did you guys link up with the show, or what was that process like? And that's well, cool.
I just found out how it happened actually.
Oh.
So last year, it starts with, well, if we're really going to follow the seeds here, I'll do it quickly, but it starts with us playing college like house parties and stuff around San Luis Obispo back in the early days of the band.
Yeah.
We caught the attention of a dude named Dylan Efron, who's friends of some of our friends, and he was going to school in the area. And, so he got into our music, I guess, and then his older brother is Zac Efron, the actor.
Yeah.
And I guess they got into our music back in the day through the San Luis Obispo connection. And then when Zac had his Netflix show in 2020, they asked if they could use some of our music as like background music. And one of them is the theme song, like an instrumental version of one of our songs is the theme song to their show, which was a cool like climate change around the world, seeing how people are adapting show. And I loved it, and we had some music on there. And our song Anti-Earth, the instrumental version, was for the credits of their show Down to Earth. And I guess the creator of the HBO show 10-Year-Old Tom saw or like heard our song in the credits of the Efron show, and then was like, oh, this is such a great vibe, and then found the lyrical version and really liked the lyrics and thought, as Steve told me, he said like what he thought that song was trying to say was exactly what he was trying to say with his show. And then he got HBO on board with using that song as the theme song for his show. And so I reached out I don't know any of this. I just got an email that was like, can this show 10-Year-Old Tom use your song? And I was like, of course. And then I saw the creator of the show followed us on Instagram. So I hit him up and was like, thank you so much. Like, what an honor for us to be a part of your show. We're so stoked, yada, yada. If you ever want to meet up, would love to like buy you a meal. And then he responded and was like, yeah, let's get dinner in LA. And then so like a couple of weeks later, we got dinner. And then he told me that whole story of how he like discovered our song on the Netflix show and then yada, yada. So
yeah.
we just, all of that is just pure luck to me, you know, just stemming back to playing college parties, you know, it's all just good luck that I just kept pulling at the string and it unraveled.
That's the organicness, right? It's just like, oh, I like, you know, it so happened Zac Efron's brother liked it was his brother, right?
Yeah.
Liked your band, and then Zac liked it, and then it's just that organic growth where you talk about, you know, and oh yeah, go ahead.
You're just totally right. At least when it comes to our band, a lot of people ask that, like, how did you get a following? And it's like I didn't do anything but just do us, and then it just got lucky, you know, or whatever the word is for it.
Yeah, it's like you guys were just your authentic selves and sound and messaging, and you just did your thing, and people dug it, and yeah, that's how I think real careers take off too, is through that organic fan base, and that's what I'm finding too. People are really liking this show, and it's growing to a lot of views, and so I just started it because I was curious to talk to other artists in different mediums, and hey, it's taken me this crazy journey too. However, I do miss like going on location and kind of shooting, because like I'm kind of getting burnt out from Zoom platform, but
right.
Yeah, but if it gives me like opportunities like this to go, you know, travel to the West Coast without actually traveling, you know, it's great to just connect with different artists, you know, and all over the place. So, you know, give and take, yin yang. But
and I assume in the near future, knock on wood, that you'll have both options where you are still traveling in person to the artist, but then also have the option to do this.
Oh yeah, no, I am actually conceiving a new idea too, where I'd like to probably have to ask all the conversations of the persons I've had conversations with, but I'd love to take the transcripts from the conversations and maybe make a book too, you know?
Oh, that's awesome. That's
yeah.
such a cool idea.
Yeah. And also I'm trying to put this on too, like basically a group show based off of everybody I've talked to so far. Like, because I've not just talked to musicians, I've talked to fine artists, visual artists, even comedians, you know? So it's like, I could have this awesome show. I love producing shows, by the way, just like live events. And I'm working on that, but it so many different prongs to that, and trying to, you know, coordinate with like 47 different people, you know, or artists, and who are represented, and like, you know, what's the documentation, you know, it's that could get tricky on that note. But that's my big idea for like having this just eclectic, very diverse, you know, multimedia show of not just fine art, but music on top. And, you know, I talked to a few, you know, maybe a month or two ago, like, he's in LA too. It's called, I don't know if you heard of him out there, Arthur King Collective. You know, he's like a mixed media kind of, you know,
kind of sounds familiar, but
yeah.
Sure.
It's actually not his name. It's the name of the artist collective, Arthur King Collective. Does some really cool stuff with sound. Like, they go out in the field, do field recordings, and then just chop and screw and play with it, and then they add video, and it's amazing experience. Like, they'll tap into your subconscious, you know.
That's cool.
What have you found, I guess, the most as the most rewarding aspect of what you've been doing? Like, has it been like the reaction from fans, or like, what do you find really most rewarding in your creation and putting out there? And I guess that's a curiosity of mine as well.
It's a really good question, because, I mean, on one hand, it's certainly like, I can think of three answers. The surface answer, the first thing that comes to mind is when like people really genuinely get something out of what you've done, you know? When people are like, whatever, this album brought me out of a tough time, or like this one song just made me validated everything I was feeling in my life. You know, when people like actually get value out of the work I put into the music. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And then the second, a really good feeling is like having the fruits of your labor like actually pay off, in that like I write a song like freaking 10 years ago, and then like 10 years go by, and then it's like on a TV show, you know, like that's a really gratifying feeling. But honestly, it's kind of selfish, but the best part to me personally is just the process of doing it. In that like I still just get so fired up writing a song, and then like if I like it, listening to it like 100 times, and just that first like 100 listens of the newest song I wrote is like the most fun, best feeling, you know?
Yeah.
So a little selfish, but that's probably the best part of doing it, is just like pleasing myself and just having a lot of fun doing it, you know?
Yeah. No,
what do you think? What's the best part about doing art for you?
That's a good question. Yeah, I know. Now I know, but I'm on the spot. Like, good question for you, but I don't know. I love the process of taking the intangible and bringing it to reality, if that makes sense. Because I consider just myself an artist, like, because I'm not. I love different mediums, you know. So I love to experiment. So if like I imagined this years ago, of like, I want to start a podcast, and you know, 2019 I kicked it off, and it grew, you know. I just love that, you know. And just like, I don't know, man, I love creating anything, like, and the best part is getting it completed. Like, taking this abstract idea and going through the process of like, particularly if it's something new and big, and like something I love diving into stuff I've never done before. Just go ahead and attempt it. Just like, hey, why not, you know? So I find that just taking the seemingly intangible and doing it and saying you're going to do it and actually doing it, that to me is the most reward. It doesn't matter if it's good, bad, or whatever. That's subjective. So, you know, but for a personal, on a personal level, it's getting, I wanted to create this, so I did it, you know, and that's very rewarding. But I guess with my series and you know, my photographic stuff, I just like connecting with, you know, artists and people who love culture, and having this cross dialogue of you know, just diverse perspectives on craft, no matter what medium. So I've learned a lot through this process as well, just constantly talking to a wide range of artists and experiences on, you know, and people of all levels. And I really love just producing like shows, like in-person shows, like being immersive shows, like with the imagery and music, and having the bands and performers I've conversed with or shot come in and you know, produce that. But that's taken a hit this year too. But yeah, it's that pure act of creating, and because like internally, it's like, for me, it's like, if oh, that's impossible, but when I prove to myself it's not impossible, it's like so rewarding, you know, because you're like, oh, that was such, just like from nothing, you produce something, you know,
Right.
that abstract creativity, I guess. But that, I just find that so cool, I guess, you know,
Right.
if
Right.
that made any sense whatsoever, I don't know.
No, that made a lot of sense. And I think what you're saying and kind of what I'm saying, the like valuing the process and the reward to yourself of making something go from nothing to something. I think like if you value that process, is the, not that there's a right and wrong way to make things at all, but it's like healthier on the mind and healthier for the lifespan of the art.
Yeah.
Versus like valuing the product and like people's reaction to what you made. Because if that's where your value lies, then you're usually setting yourself up for failure.
Oh yeah.
And you don't feel good after you've completed something most of the time, because obviously not everything you do is a masterpiece and or is going to get attention. Yeah. And so that's like a good way to shoot yourself on the foot and slow your momentum, I feel like, if you're valuing kind of like the final product and the reaction to that. But like you said, when you're like loving just the idea of like putting a bunch of things in and then seeing what comes out, and like that process oriented aspect, I feel like you could go forever, because you just will always be valuing that process. You won't always be dependent on an outcome, you know?
No, exactly. It's just a constant curiosity with life. For me, it is like, and that's why I don't like to label myself just as like a photographer, because that's very limiting to me in the scope of things, because I don't want to just, you know, I like to use the camera as more of an investigative tool. Maybe this is from my interest in forensics and stuff, but comparatively to just trying to make a living from it, or like, you know, that's why I've never, you know, why don't you do wedding photography? Because I'm not a wedding photographer. I'm definitely not interested in weddings, and I'm not going to do well at it because I don't like weddings. You know, like I'm an artist. Like I'm not going to, like, just because I'm good with the camera doesn't mean I'm like going to sell myself short of just documenting weddings with just for money, because it's not me. Like, people really enjoy that type of work, and that's their thing, not me. Like, I just love being part of culture, being in the mix of culture, ideas, abstractions, experimentation, technology, everything like that, different processes, and trying to make it all work somehow. And also just dive into my own subconscious and try to communicate something with that. Sometimes it's like, oh, maybe I'll stop, I'm scared, you know. Yeah. But yeah, I guess, I don't know, once again, I'm sorry, I lost track, but I'm just so engaged with all sorts of ideas. You know, surround myself with books, different, you know, mediums, and I'm all about experimentation, you know. And that's another question I was going to ask you. Like, how have you kept up your energy, your curiosity? Do you dive into any other mediums just as experimentation to create, you know, do you like draw, paint, anything else? So do you kind of keep
Yeah.
that mind busy other than music, or?
Yeah, definitely. I like to paint a lot. Like I make little watercolor paintings mainly, and I write a lot too, like short stories or screenplays sometimes. And I've also done a lot of like film, video stuff. Like done a lot of sketch comedy stuff with friends. I
Cool.
usually am on the directing, filming side because I'm a pretty shit actor and get nervous in front of the camera. But I have done the acting thing too, and yeah, I kind of like you name it, and I've dabbled in it, but
Yeah.
pretty bad at everything. Music is definitely the not even.
uh, you kind of like popping in and out. I'm not sure. Is it the headphone jack or?
I am getting a phone call repeatedly from a very obnoxious individual. I will say.
Oh, well, if you have to go, I
think the
won't.
phone. Oh no, no, it's an unruly neighbor who is not always in the right mind.
Oh, jeez.
It's fine.
I was like, yeah.
But I think I might have been interfering with my connection. Is this better now?
Yeah, it's much better. It was just like popping in and out, kind of scratchy sound. But what up?
Yeah, I was basically just saying I've dabbled in a lot of different things, but music is definitely the main one.
Yeah. But no, but you know, it's like as a creative, it's like you got to play around with things too, and that could dictate like through the play with like playing around with video and film, you could come up with a new song concept or something. Like you never know where new ideas come from, but to stem your main work through the other interest, so that's like the idea of the artist kind of always being a child self, tapping into that child self and always playing around, because if you keep that self open, you never know where new concepts or new ideas for albums, etc., songs come from. Right. But you have to allow yourself that openness.
So true. Which is kind of the point of the child's mind, huh? Is not being in your rigid adult mind with all the barriers already set up for you and the templates of thinking. But before all that, when your mind is just this fluid blob and different connections and associations can be made.
Yeah.
It helps to be a curious person, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. But then it's like when I talk to my family or like the old friends from home who kind of stayed like in the corporate world and the house kids, etc., they kind of don't get me, But I've kind of, my adventures in New York I've learned a lot though, like just moving from Boston to Brooklyn and on a whim without any like solid vision or job. I just picked up and moved to Brooklyn, and then I found the camera, and the universe somehow put the camera in front of me, and it's off and running from there. I had my first show in Chelsea in 2017, and wow. I picked up the camera, that late November 2016, or like not even. So it was just off and running, and but no, it's an interesting journey, and I always love to talk about it too with people and hear their stories as well. Just to wrap, I don't want to keep you any longer. What I guess a more futuristic kind of question, like what do you see? What hopes and visions do you have for Walter at the Walter Project? What do you see it evolving to? Could it evolve into something else other than live performances and albums, or do you see it spinning off somewhere else?
That's a really good question. I can't say I really have a definitive vision in the long term as far as something I'm trying to change or change into or evolve into, other than
Mm.
I definitely want to keep it going. I definitely want to make a bunch of more albums of all different genres and, you know, all different forms. And obviously would like the band to keep growing and getting more listeners or just people who are aware of the band. But, you know, I don't have like a set goal, I guess, which maybe I should, but I'm also just keeping expectations low and just kind of following my whims to see where it takes me. But I think I would like to evolve, as you can probably relate, into more like different crafts too, not just music. Music has definitely been my main spearhead of the past, like my whole life, I guess. But I would love to have some form of success or like some big project in another medium, like make a movie or write a novel or something, you know. I think in the future, not stopping music, but adding some other medium prominently would be probably the goal.
Oh, totally. One other kind of fun question I forgot to ask earlier was like, any dream like collaboration or like anybody who you haven't worked with that you really love to work with musically wise? Or
gosh,
I know it's so kind of generic question, but
I want to make an album with you.
Okay. I got my hand drum right here. Yeah.
Hey, I got one too. It's right over here. Here, I got another little one right here. We can start together.
Oh. I don't know how to like. So you have to like kick it off.
Are we playing with each other? I can't even tell. I wonder how that's going to end up sounding.
Probably awful. No. But yeah. Cool, man. I'll let you go. Oh, actually, any new stuff out that you want to just kind of plug? Well, that you want people to know about?
Yeah. Well, we had an album come out this year called There There, which is that's probably the newest, coolest thing we have going on to plug. We also have some shows coming up celebrating an older album called Overwhelmed and Underdressed, but that's literally in a week, so I don't know if this will be out by then.
No, it's probably every 2 weeks, and actually, you're not too far back in the queue. We caught up with, you know, our actually, you'd be next, actually, after this one coming up, but that would be in 2 weeks. I think this conversation would be in 2 weeks, but.
Sweet. Well, yeah, if you're listening, go check out our last album, There There, on Spotify or wherever, Walter, etc. And you can just go backwards in the discography from there, and you tell me if our albums got better or worse.
And I might do so. Actually, that's a good exercise. You know, actually, that's a good overview. Like, you know, listening, like, oh, from present to, you know, the earliest album, or back and forth. Yeah.
It might make more sense to go for anyone, not just our band, to go all the way back and then go forward, so that you trace it more linearly or more the way it was done. But
yeah, like you see the initial concept of the band, and then how it either evolved or devolved, you know. Yeah. You're like, oh, all right, I'm done. We're done now.
That'd be fine. I don't even care. If everyone thought it devolved, that'd be just as cool.
Yeah. Either way, but dude, it was a pleasure talking to you, and we have to collaborate on an album with a hand drum album. Actually, I'm probably pretty terrible at singing, so I'm not a vocals guy, but maybe I'll do the hand drum or even just the triangle, you know, just like, or cowbell, you know, cool. Or a shaker too, like, or maraca. Yeah.
There we go.
That's it. That's where I live. Ding, ding,
ding. Yeah, I mean, you don't know how much I love those things, so
yeah,
works for me.
Yeah, man. Well, have it's afternoon there, right? Or midday? Or,
It is afternoon, yeah.
well, have a wonderful afternoon, sir. And uh, yeah, I'll definitely dive deeper in your work and do that study of your first album to your current album.
Good luck.
Yeah. And also help spread the word organically about 10-year-old Tom, and actually point out that that is album, your track, so
Yeah, check out 10-Year-Old Tom. I had nothing to do with the show, but it's a really good show. I really like it.
cool, man. Oh yes, yeah. Cool. And
That's my plug.
yeah, yeah. All right, man. Cool.
Thanks so much for having me.